case you missed it, I'm Alexis,
And I'm Kaylee.
and this is To the
To the
Blueberry.
blueberry.
To the Blueberry! We're gonna scream that a lot throughout
I'm
this
gonna laugh
podcast,
at you
aren't
a
we?
lot, so that's just gonna.
Good, good. I was meant to be a person that people laugh at. In a former life, I used to get up on stages and make college students laugh at me, and it was really fun.
I almost forgot you did that.
Oh,
Wow.
yes. Yes,
Wow.
total sidebar to the Blueberry. My favorite line to say at campus visitation days at the university was, please bring a plunger. Your body is changing, and it's really embarrassing when you have to ask for a plunger from someone else.
Okay, Gus.
Yes, yes, I was the responsible one.
Oh my. Yeah, I was just thinking about how you had pretty much the same job from the time you were in college for how many years after college? And you
Oh
just got
gosh.
promoted in it?
Yeah, I did 7 years full time. And I did 6 years undergrad and grad school. And I just kept taking care of dramatic teenagers in residence halls.
I was gonna ask you, and it'll come up in this episode, but I think the only almost fight you and I ever had was about that job.
Yes, it was.
Because you had so many times where you couldn't leave. You had to live there 24/7. And I got salty about it and I was trying to joke, but it didn't come out right and I did not mean to disrespect you. I felt so bad, but
Oh, I'm excited to see how that relates to our episode today.
it does.
So, to start our recording here, we are going to do a quick recap of the episode. Just to make sure that everyone knows that we watched season one, episode one, and I didn't even look at the title of it. Is it just
Pilot?
called Pilot?
Yeah, it's called Pilot.
So, Kaylee, I think you're gonna try to do the recap.
We're gonna try and tag team it because a lot of the notes that I took watching this are really disjointed. So if I get off track, bring me back down. But we
You know
open
that's
as
right.
so many episodes open, and it's 1986, and it's a little Sean with Henry, his dad. And I wish I could go back to not knowing what we know about the show and like feel what it would have been like to experience like seeing that relationship just kick off the show. But
Especially the way they open this first one with him doing the
how
the
many
hat
hats?
test.
Yes.
That I mean that is so quintessential Sean Henry relationship. And I think that was just like on the writer's part such a perfect way to start the series.
I think it was very close to like the show creator his whole idea and somebody involved had a cop dad or something, so they kind of were drawing on experience of some kind. But we get the fingers to the head that
Yes.
we keep throughout the series and it happens. But I just wrote, cop dad is a buzzkill, gimme cake. And and that kid seems so mature and logical, and I'm like, he doesn't feel like Rode. Like, I'm sorry to this child, but they needed the recast. But it did a good job of setting up.
To that point though, I can't remember, and I mean obviously we'll figure it out as we continue to watch, but when did the recast happen? It was right after the pilot, or did they go through season one with this little Sean?
I don't think that they kept that Sean. I think because it took so much, well, it didn't take that long for the show to be picked up, but in the interim, it got tweaked because what the pilot did was really set us up for like just the premise, like what we were going to get, but they didn't find the rhythm. Like clearly they had to have a different female presence alongside Lassiter
Yes.
just to strike the right tone.
Literally one of my notes says I don't like not Jules.
Yeah, and it's not her fault like that. She's a great actress. I've seen her in other things, but it just like tonally wasn't bringing anything enough to kind of give shades to Lassiter.
Totally agree.
And I just kept trying. We'll come to this later. I have a lot to say about Lassiter in the pilot. But, I did hate the transition from that prelude into the weird makeout session
Yeah.
that Sean's having when he starts solving crimes via the news. Like, I do like how they showed us, oh, he's just solving crimes casually watching the news. I just didn't, I didn't need to see it.
I was interested in the fact that like it was a quote unquote accident that the TV turned on because they bumped into the remote, and then he watched the guy. So to continue with the episode recap, essentially Sean ends up watching TV while macking with this girl, and he realizes that it was a convenience store that had gotten robbed, or a
So
grocery
it was
store.
like a almost like a Radio Shack. It was like a speaker store or something.
Yeah, it had been robbed, and just by watching the interview, Sean figures out that the manager of the store was the one who had set up the robbery, because he was showing classic signs of liars, like twitching, and he can't make eye contact and stuff like that.
Yes, and from there he makes an anonymous call to tip off the police, to tell them this, and then he waltzes in. It's a weird transition, but he waltzes into the Santa Barbara Police Department the next day to get his commendation, and he's just casually collecting clues that are going to help him lie really well later. Like, that's just the whole time I was like, there he is, picking up little things, and this is all going to pay off, and it was just beautifully done. Do we want to name any of those? Do we want to go into it?
Well, that was one of my things that, like, rewatching it for the third or fifth time. I don't know how many times I've watched Psych before, but rewatching it and thinking about it kind of critically to sit up for this recording, it was really, really interesting the way they showed that his character was just always picking up stuff like that. Like, that was a good lead to what we're gonna see for the rest of the series. But it's just very, very funny. The whole thing is very, very funny.
Yeah, the pilot did a really good job setting up a lot of stuff that just carried through. I mean, we didn't lose a lot. We just tightened everything up, I feel like, in subsequent seasons and built on the really good foundation that the whole idea had.
Can I also point out, though, one of the things that you were just talking about, the clues that he was picking up as he came in, was Buzz McNabb dancing.
My note says, "Oh, we love McNabb," and I love that he
I wrote,
sticks around.
I forgot Buzz was in the pilot, and it's amazing because Buzz makes it all the way to the third Psych movie.
I think I knew that. I think I accidentally heard that, and for me it was kind of a spoiler. But and then we have oh, I wrote, ew, Lassie chewing gum the whole time. He's doing this weird thing that I don't think he ever does again, where, like, every time you see his character being, like, all cop mode, he's, like, chewing gum. And I'm like, oh, I hate this. And I said, poor what's her name doesn't add enough sunshine or happy anti-Lassiter vibe.
Yes. So that keeps going with the recap. So eventually Lassie is like Carlton Lassiter to clear up why
Detective.
Lassie's a better name. Detective Carlton Lassiter, good call, Kay. Lassie thinks that Sean is actually this store manager's accomplice. And so they bring him in for questioning. When they bring him in for questioning, Sean has to think on his feet, which is just something that Sean always has to do throughout the series. But this shows that moment of, oh crap, I better figure something out.
Well, I had this moment of, like, he keeps telling them, like, you already know the truth. Like, I'm not the guy. I'm not your guy. I know because I watch the TV. And it's like they don't want to hear the truth. And I thought this was like a perfect non-propaganda moment where it's just like they don't want the truth. They want their opinion, like, validated. And I was like, all right, they're asking you to lie, man. Go for it. And he
Yes.
does so well.
That I thought was just so cool, and such like a perfect moment. But my favorite moment was that when Sean says, yes, I'm psychic, and he starts explaining things, and Lassie says, who's buying this? And everyone kind of slowly raises their hand. But the moment that I've never caught before until today, or until yesterday when I watched it, was the guy's hand from the cell.
You
Like, the
didn't
guy
see
is
that
in the
before?
prison cell and he just sticks his hand out and raises it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
He's
I've
super
never noticed that
convincing.
before.
I
Yes.
was gonna say, I think Buzz struck his tone and kept it. Like he is a sweet baby angel just forever. But I think the chief is my favorite SBPD. She really hit it and stuck the landing, and like she keeps that attitude, like the way she plays with Sean, and is just like, I kind of don't care whether you're lying to me or not. Don't get caught in this lie because you're giving me results. Like I like respect. Like she respects and I respect.
Chief Vic was actually set as a guest star for the episode.
She was
And
for a
and
little while, actually. They kept telling
yeah,
her you're
I
gonna
think it was
be.
the entire first season.
Yeah, and I think I heard Tim Amundsen, Carlton Lasseter, he really stuck up for her because like it kept being like that and sort of relegated to guest star instead of like regular. And he was like don't let them do this to you. And when they started having bigger and bigger guest stars, we'll get to that later, like they would introduce her name after, but like she needs to be seventh on the call list, if that, you know what I mean.
No, I'm with you. I think that Chief Vic is like the perfect part of that episode, the perfect part of the series, and you can see how much she really, eh, as Chief Vic, really like believes or no, doesn't believe, but also recognizes the need. And she really, really proves that in this first episode, and it's pretty amazing.
So she's really the impetus to getting this ball rolling. She's just like, I'm gonna give you a tryout, help us with this kidnapping. And it's a super rich family. They own half the hill, I think Sean says. And he's instantly like, I need to go get my buddy. And then we get
Yeah.
introduced to.
Gus.
So Gus has a big kid
Burton
job.
Guster.
Yeah, and he's actually in an office, even though he's playing, like, was it Galaga or whatever that is.
Right hand on the arrow keys, left hand on the space bar. Come on, man.
And he's skeptical. He's tired of the shenanigans, and I love the bit they do of like all the other jobs that Sean has had, and he's like, that time you were an acupuncturist. It's like, I didn't know you needed to have prior experience. And apparently a lot of that was like just them riffing and like getting their rhythm down together, which I love. It's so seamless. It sticks around, and you see how much they have fun together and just play off each other. And it reminded me of me because again, you were in that job for what, 7 years, and I have done some varied things.
And this is why you will always be the Sean to my Gus.
I love that. Oh, but what does Gus say when Sean explains the case? The son of the wealthy war hero, local millionaire, has been kidnapped. They took him from the dog park, and he and the dog haven't been seen since. And Gus says,
They took the dog too? Something like that.
"Yeah, yeah, exactly." And so, cut two, they go to the millionaire's house to kind of like get the lowdown, see what the vibe is. And at this point, I just wrote LMAO CD case. He's like going through the garbage to get clues. And the dog is really well fed on super bougie dog food. And then girl crazy Sean starts to notice all the pictures on the wall of the rich dude's daughter, sister to the missing guy. And I was like, aw.
He so kindly points out, like, went through a glow up before glow up was a phase. Or
So kindly.
yes, I definitely said phase instead of phrase, but that's okay. That was a very, very funny, like, before its time moment that I enjoyed.
Yeah, it was before its time. I just wrote girl crazy Sean loves the boring white girl face, which as someone with boring white girl face, I feel entitled to talk about. Cause she's fine looking. Like she's fine looking. She's just not interesting. And then we've got a great moment where Sean is with a sketch artist, and he's just describing a guy in a picture that he's seeing, and then everyone loses their mind when they notice that they know the guy. They know the guy that the artist is drawing. He did it.
And it's the girl's boyfriend.
I mean, they're not serious. She made a
made
point to say they're free to see other people.
Yes.
I think when Gus quits, he says, I'm out, I'm done with this. It's the first Gus quitting. that, is a thing.
Of many.
Also, his stubborn face. That stubborn face. And I think we get the first Sean tongue click. I think I caught that. I think he went,
So they're at the house and they're trying to figure out because Sean can't really seem to deduce anything appropriate. And so they're trying to figure out how they're going to get out of it. And Gus said something to him along the lines of, "Tell him that you're blocked. Tell him that you
no, I'm
can't
going to have
see."
to use that later.
Yes. Which he totally does. Not particularly in this episode, but he definitely does moving forward.
Yeah, that is a thing that happens. Do you remember how they get out of the house? Like how they do end up leaving? I mean, Gus does kind of storm off, but
Dad kicks them out.
no, I think they're leaving as he's coming in.
You're right. And then
And he's real cooperative.
Right. That's why they stop and talk to him.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, so they find out that the guy who got kidnapped is totally devoted to this dog. He would never do anything without the dog. Interesting. And Gus is quitting. He's just like done playing. He's got a real job. Next scene, Gus is sleeping soundly in his bed, and there's rustling noises and commotion in his house. What does he grab to defend himself? Anything?
Oh, his pharmaceutical case. He's walking out with his giant metallic suitcase like I'm gonna hit someone over the head with this or something.
We should say Gus's big kid job is a pharmaceutical rep.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. So they're in the house and Sean is making them coffee when Sean has describes his stroke of genius that he had regarding the case.
He says nobody committed the kidnapping.
That's it.
Gus loses it at that point. He just really goes, he's like, oh, good. We can just tell the cops not to worry because nobody did it. But I just kept noticing stuff in the background. I was like, Gus, who stacks their glasses like that? Bro, what's that huge bowl of lime for? You got like a huge metal bowl of limes for what?
I was definitely trying to spot the pineapple. I was expecting it to be in like the back of his kitchen somewhere and I would be able to see it in the back there. It wasn't, by the way.
Do we want to hit pause for a pineapple hunt?
Now seems to be let's explain what Sean figured out and then we will pause for a pineapple hunt.
Ah, so he figured out that it is a fake kidnapping. This guy faked his own kidnapping because he had to be a reformed bad boy in order to not be disinherited by his father. So after 18 months of good behavior, what happened?
He decided, well, not giving too much away, he and his friend came up with a plan. He stopped hanging out with his friend for 18 full months, and then they realized that I know, isn't that terrible? They realized that they could, quote unquote, kidnap him and then hold himself ransom, I guess, so that he had money since he was getting cut off.
Yes, and it's like $5 million, or did we know what the ransom demand was at that point?
I think it was 5 million or 50 million or something like that. I don't really remember the exact digits, but this is when the beauty comes in. So first of all, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Because this is the beginning of a something that I noticed in this episode, and I know I will continue to notice, and I want to pitch it to you. Why does Sean always drive?
Oh.
So here's where
Is
the question
it always
comes in.
though?
I don't know if it's always, but he drives the Blueberry pretty often.
We should say our wonderful title is named after Gus's car. We haven't been introduced to it yet, but we know down the road this company car, it's a company car, Sean. It's named the Blueberry. And we'll definitely point out when it actually gets its name, but that's why we like to yell it. To the Blueberry!
The reason I ask that question is because Gus finally agrees to go with Sean to take care of checking out what's going on, seeing if they can find the missing gentleman, whose name I don't remember, just to be clear. But in true My Favorite Murder style, I don't have a ton of facts. I'm just kind of making stuff up as I go. Also, I hope you caught the My Favorite Murder reference earlier. Good job, Kay. Yes. So Gus is going to get ready, and Sean is standing in a doorway, and he reaches over and he grabs Gus's keys because he's driving. And so he grabs the keys, he throws them in his other hand, and then he sticks his hand back over, and he pulls out what? A
The
pineapple.
pineapple! That was just in the set dressing. He just grabbed that from off camera and brought it into the scene. And it's now a
Is
legend.
that really how it happened?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he just riffs all the time. He caught everybody off guard in like their chemistry reads, just like riffing at them and seeing who could cope or like knowing that they would have to cope. Like it's great.
It just cracked me up because, like, I'm a person who likes to put order to things and make sense of things. And so immediately I was like, what the heck is Gus doing with a pineapple by his door? Like,
And a big bowl of limes.
yeah, it's a huge bowl
This
of
man has a
limes.
problem.
But that was our pineapple moment, brought to you by, I don't know, some sponsor that we might get in the future about pineapples. Ta-da!
Oh, that would be great.
Dun dun dun! Muffins!
Oh, muffins. I can't wait for that episode. So they get on the road, I guess, to like start running down clues, and they get pulled over. And the guy asks for license and registration, and Sean hands his license, and stuck to the back of it is what, Alexis?
How conveniently, his father's business card.
And his father
That's what I was about to say.
was a retired police
It's so
detective.
important to point that out. The business card is there. It's his retired police officer business card. And so clearly says his name. And then the officer that pulled him over said, "You're Henry's son?"
Henry Spencer is a legend in Santa Barbara, apparently.
Yes.
But the guy says, tell him Kingfisher says hey. But this is how Sean. Okay, Kingfisher. This is how Sean discovers that his dad is back in town because Henry was apparently in Miami in his retirement, and I just wrote ew. Sorry, Miami. I just like this guy's from Santa Barbara, and he's just like going to Miami.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd make that transition, but okay. There's a reason he came back. I'm just saying.
Right. I just this is the start of like some very clear daddy issues for Sean. Like he and his dad have a contentious relationship, but there is, and we'll see it again and again, there is like mutual respect there. It's just like there's so much tension too. But I love it. It's always about sons and their dads.
Aww. So they're at the woods across the lake or river or whatever from the cabin, and they're looking.
Oh yeah, the family cabin.
And they're looking through these Sports Illustrated binoculars, and I'm sorry, Sean sees the dog, and Sean knows that that's exactly where the missing guy is. It's absolutely like 100% this guy goes nowhere without his dog. That's where he's at. And so he tells Gus that he sees the dog and he passes over the
Binoculars?
thank you words. He passes over the binoculars, and this is the first time that Gus goes, "What?" Like excited
I wrote
screams,
that
"What?"
down.
And I love that they keep that bit going throughout the entire series. And I love that I use that in my everyday language.
And it gets more and more exaggerated and wonderful, but I went I am the Sean because he's just like, this is a great plan. It's just like, yes, dude, respect for a crime well done. It's just like it's set up beautifully, nobody's suspecting it. Only this fake psychic detective is figuring it out. Gus is not down. He's not down for the crime well done. And he's not cool with like the acting that Sean wants to do because he's like, oh, we gotta call the cops. And Sean's like, no way. We need an audience.
Yes.
We need to make a spectacle of ourselves at all times. So
the numbers 813 will come to me.
I don't even remember what the highway actually is, but
Sean, this is the 138. I know, but in the mystic world, numbers get all jumbled.
So so they need to track down the detectives on the case and make a spectacle of themselves and be like, I'm getting something, and then miraculously pull this out of their butts. But Lassiter's having none of it. He and his junior detective
Not
partner are on their way to lunch.
That's just what I'm going to call her from now on.
Oh, not Juliet. Poor not Juliet. But they're on their way to eat lunch, and Sean mysteriously goes, don't eat the chicken. And he's noticed that the cook has hay fever.
Don't we all?
And yeah, and once Lassiter kind of catches on to this, he goes back outside to confront them. And, all the shenanigans begin once again.
They end up taking an entire squad out to the cabin where the dog was that Sean and Gus saw through the Sports Illustrated binoculars. And everything's getting ready and all is well, and the dog runs up to Sean and Gus freaks out.
Gus does freak out. I wrote, ha ha ha, Gus versus the puppy. But if I can, I forgot to point out another bit. It's the first time when Carlton Lassiter runs out of the restaurant to confront them. It's the first time we get act natural. And they just stand in the most unnatural, fake suave poses. I can't believe I forgot. But yeah, once they get back to the lake with the whole squad in tow, the puppy runs right up to everybody, and Gus is not down.
No.
And I was like, oh, Alexis is the Gus.
I am.
And it's not your fault. You're allergic to
I
puppies.
am. So they get inside, and this is another wonderful bit that keeps going. They're dealing, and they see that there are actually two dead bodies inside. The guy
What?
that was quote unquote kidnapped, and the guy who helped him kidnap himself.
Yeah, his best friend, bad boy accomplice.
So
Oh.
next really great bit, Gus runs away screaming like a girl, which only gets better when Sean also runs away screaming like a girl with Gus.
I wrote, neither of us have ever screamed like Gus and Sean scream,
No.
but I wanna. Because they're great screams.
Also, I don't know if it's if it's when they're inside or if it's when they're back outside or whatever, but at some point they reference a cinnamon festival. Did you catch that?
I noticed that. I did when they were 8.
Yes. Okay. And there's other points in the series where they talk about the cinnamon festival or a cinnamon festival.
There is a cinnamon.
Right.
Yeah, later on we'll actually get one. I think this is where, Gus is so freaked out being confronted with these dead bodies. I think this is where he was like, Sean, I will kill you. And I just wrote, have you ever wanted to kill me? Maybe that time I made you mad about your job.
Maybe there was just times when I wanted to say, Kaylee, I will kill you.
Oh, that's valid.
I don't know
Yeah,
if it would
that's
actually
even
want to
better.
murder you. I'm not really
Yeah,
that
no,
way.
I don't think we've ever had that. So, back at the police department, Sean's not satisfied. This murder-suicide before they got the ransom money nonsense, it doesn't sit right. And everybody's like, you're just trying to complicate things. This is cut and dry. This is what happened. But it doesn't make sense. It's not satisfying. And I love this. It's so universal to detective stories. It's like, this isn't wrapped up. This is more complicated than you want it to be. Let me do the thing. And I love that. And we get Super Rich Daddy is in the police department, and Sean wants to confront him, but everyone's blocking him. And the guy's got a bandage on his wrist. And I love Sean was just like, what's wrong with his wrist? What's up with his wrist? I think he says. And what does Not Jules tell us?
I think Not Juliet says, rumor is he tried to off himself.
Yeah.
That is important. That is an important note, because later...
Sean instantly is like, what, the great war hero who's seen everything, dealt with everything? He suddenly can't cope? Suddenly?
And yet, I mean, we'll get to this part a little bit later. Sean absolutely references him trying to off himself, quote unquote, in the recap, which is interesting.
Oh, when he's breaking down?
Yes.
The case.
Because Sean usually doesn't get things wrong, but we notice a really small point. Oh, well, I guess, spoiler alert, he's wrong. But
I don't think he's wrong, because he didn't really buy it, but like it gets brought up again. It keeps being brought because it's an incongruity. And so I think it's after this point when he's like, he's kind of pushed out of the police department that we finally get Henry.
yes.
And he finally goes to see his dad.
Which is a different house than Henry's house for the rest of the series.
Oh, I didn't even notice the house because they don't stay there. They like go out to eat at some like pub or bar or something.
Yeah. So they end up at a bar, and Gus is asking Henry for help. Gus is...
No, Sean.
Oh, crap. Sean is asking Henry for help. And Sean is trying to figure out what's going on. He knows, like you said, that there's something wrong. Something's not sitting right. And just like in the cold open, Henry tests him. he says, "You're getting soft," and Sean said, "No, I'm stronger than ever, or I'm better than ever," or something like
Sharper.
that. Sharper
He's
than
sharper
ever.
than ever.
There it is. And so Henry gives him the hat test again. And I love the way Sean starts it with, just so you don't try to pull a fast one on me, Dad, I'm not counting the one in your back pocket.
I love Henry's little like acknowledgement of like, all right, he saw that.
Yeah. So Sean essentially passes the hat test, although there is some discrepancy between Sean and Henry, although Sean 100% got it on point because
He
he
knew about it, and he
he
also knew that it left.
right. It was just so perfect, and Henry didn't recognize that. That's why Sean is sharper than ever.
So, I mean, Henry's giving him crap because once again, he's not getting a real job. He's not being normal and settling down and being like, making dad proud or whatever. But he is, I mean, okay, we'll get to this later, but my big thing was real jobs blow. And I know this more than ever because I've had some fun ones and I've had lots of serious ones, and I'll tell you which ones I liked that didn't pay well. There's a lot of motorcycle hate. There's like a lot of like, you're being irresponsible and this is a symbol of it type.
Yes, and that is, I mean, to some extent that's a bit until much later on in the series when Sean gets thrown off his bike.
Yeah,
And then even farther
Rode
into
really
the
hated that
series,
bike.
yeah, there's a very, very beautiful moment later on in the series where Sean talks about getting rid of his motorcycle, and it's just a
I
really,
mean, yeah, it is a symbol of growth, I guess.
yes,
I mean, how many people fit on a motorcycle?
that is the struggle.
And in the rain. I mean, I know you're in California, but come on. Come on, son. Um,
Come on, son. Come on, son.
and I like they're spying on Rich Girl and her boyfriend that Sean hates because they don't have a lot of leads right now. And this is another first. It's a thing Sean does all the time where he's like, "Oh, what's up with his hair? His hair is horrible." Like, his hair is horrible.
Which is so funny. Just like in perspective, it's so funny. Perspective, maybe? I don't know. Wrong word, right word. It's so funny because first of all, James Rode Rodriguez has beautiful hair, and
Oh, he's got impressive
yeah,
hair.
to this day, like small shout out to A Million Little Things. If you haven't started watching it, don't watch it. It will ruin you, I promise. But
Oh no, I know.
he still has beautiful hair. And then there's Dule Hill, who throughout the entire series is bald, but again, I'm gonna shout out oh shoot. It's a remake of a show that you really like.
The Wonder Years.
The Wonder Years. Oh. Old Gus. Oh. And he just goes, "Be cool." Like, that's his tagline.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so beautiful. But he has some beautiful hair in there. But I digress. Okay, so it's just funny.
Well, it's at this point in the show that I'm looking at the clothes that everyone's wearing. Like, none of these clothes fit people except, like, Sean's kind of makes sense for him. But, like, nobody's suits are cut very good. And all the girls are wearing really terrible jeans. I mean, have we ever, as a culture, ever really gotten on top of women's pants? I feel like we just keep failing in new ways. But those chunky, over-embellished jeans and low-rise cut, ugh.
Yeah, low rise.
I can't.
And yet it's coming back. I will date this. We are recording on April 19th, 2022. And I'm absolutely seeing things that are telling me that low rise jeans are coming back. And I have
I will
one
swath
thing to say
myself
about that.
in neck-high pants
Yes.
before I...
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
It was the
So-
2000s.
It was, oh gosh, it wasn't their fault. So they're following Rich Girl around, and she's got a duffel bag that looks like it has stacks of money in it. So they're instantly suspicious that she has stacks of money. She has the ransom money, and she's in on it, and there's something terrible afoot. They try to sneak the bag away. Well, they try to grab it, and then they try to sneak the bag away. And shenanigans abound. It's just a classic Gus Shawn mess around. And it's really hard to explain because they're like running through a thrift store and getting threatened by the guy who runs the thrift store and like making Rich Girl mad. And
I think the way that Gus said it, I guess they both said it, but Gus said something along the lines of, "You used me as a distraction?"
of course you're a decoy.
That's it. Of course you're a decoy.
Why didn't you tell me I was the decoy?
Yes. So they get the bag, and ultimately they see that there was once money in the bag. It has,
Perfect little imprints of stacks of money somehow,
yes. And
but
then magically, or psychically, if you will, Sean is able to deduce how much money was in the bag, which was, I guess, whatever the original ransom
about,
was.
yeah, 5 million, I guess. And there's a confrontation between Sean and Not Jules. And I think she says to him, like, he's like, look, I know this is kind of a gray area. And she's like, your whole life is a gray area. He's like, I don't live in the gray area. I vacation there sometimes. It's like perfect. Perfect Sean. And I bet it was off the cuff. Like, I really don't know if that would have been on the page. Like, no
Mhm.
disrespect, because the writers are great on the show, but a lot of it is like added in.
I just want everyone
And
to know, if anyone ever listens to our podcast, that Kaylee has a corgi pop socket on the back of her phone that I can see through our cameras right now, and I love it. It's quintessential Kaylee.
this corgi is looking back at it and winking. Like, how could I not? Yeah, so your whole life is a gray area, and she's giving him a chance to look at some files and ask some questions, but she takes him down to the shooting range. And I wrote, does this ever come back? Because he is an excellent shot. Like, she tells him he missed when she makes him take a turn shooting, but when she brings the target paper back up, he has literally doubled on all of her shots. Does that ever come back?
I think the one time that might come back around is much later on in the series, where we find out that Sean did in fact take the detective exam, and that he scored perfectly on the detective exam, because part of that would have been a marksmanship exam. Now, there's a little bit of like Alexis deducing that, but I think that's accurate.
Oh, that's excellent. Of course, Alexis would deduce that. So then they go to confront Rich Daddy, because what Sean has deduced here, we're just going to keep using this word now,
Good word. I love that word.
because like he saw the crime scene, he saw this apparent murder suicide, and he's taken in all these clues, and it doesn't sit right with him. It doesn't make sense, but he doesn't know why. And then he starts looking into it, and he sees this file, and Not Jules kind of lets him know that, like, in town where the cabin was, they all knew the accomplice best friend's car. He had this special custom muffler on this old muscle car, and everybody knew it was very identifiable. It's like an orange muscle car.
Yeah.
So this old man in town had seen it multiple times. He knew the guy was around. And Sean goes to confront Rich Guy because he has suspicions that outside of police cooperation, Rich Daddy made a ransom drop. And he found out about the plot because he recognized the best friend's car, and he knew that he got duped. And we're getting all of this like piecemeal, but Gus Gus gets ill during the confrontation and has to leave the room. And then he comes in and hustles Sean out. Like, Sean's getting nowhere with Rich Daddy because Rich Daddy knows he's not a cop. He knows he doesn't have the evidence, and he's like, I will not be bullied by you, peon. Um so Gus hustles Sean out, and then he completely ties it up with a bow. What does he tell Sean?
So in the bathroom, of course, Gus went into the bathroom, and as a good pharmaceutical salesman, he went through the guy's medicine cabinet, and he finds that there is a prescription for something that is used to treat dog bites.
Dun dun dun.
And that's important to know because of something that Kaylee wouldn't let me quote earlier, so we will come back to that.
Well, we're about to find out, but I just wrote evidence puppy teeth. So Sean and Gus are outside, and again, Gus is like, we know what happened now. We even have proof about it, and they need to make a spectacle. So they sit outside in the car, and they call the cops pretending to be someone at Rich Daddy's house. And I love that I've just like named this family Rich because I don't know their name.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. So the cops come, and they actually arrest Sean and Gus for trespassing. And Rich Daddy is like, Chief, this is ridiculous. I'm an upstanding member, blah, blah, blah. I'm on all the boards, blah, blah, blah. These guys, this case is closed. I don't want my family harassed. And then Sean does his psychic freak out.
Oh, Gus before that, in true in true Gus fashion, goes, Sean, come on, they're gonna arrest us. If you wait any longer, we're gonna be behind bars. And then that's just, those are moments when I really connect with Gus, so I like to talk about them. But Sean has his psychic freak out.
And these became legendary because at this point in the show, like, they didn't see the whole story and the whole plot arc, so they didn't know the mystery and how it was going to get solved until the psychic freakouts and the full recap that James Roday Rodriguez as Sean Spencer had to do. And so, I think it gets more pieced together, but at this point, it was like the story was real loose and all the pieces were there, and then Sean brings it all together at the end for the other characters and the other actors. But he basically says, you felt something that you didn't even know you could feel, like you were so betrayed and it was an accident. You confronted your son and he fell and he hit his head and you knew he was dead. And then accomplice best friend comes in with the ransom money, and Rich Daddy knows he's basically lost, but the only way out of this is to now make it look like the murder-suicide. So he actively kills best friend accomplice, which is so cold.
I like, just from a true crime perspective, I don't know that I would have shot the other guy to try to hide it. Even if I was Rich Daddy, I would like to be Rich Daddy one day, but even if I was Rich Daddy, like, I would far rather plead manslaughter to an accidental death and go to jail for 5 years than have an active killing on my conscience, whether or not I'm ever charged for it.
Yeah, but at this point, he's still blowing smoke. Rich Daddy's like, can't prove any of this. This is harassment. How dare you? And Sean starts pointing out the wrist, the bite. The bite! The dog knew you! The dog knew the intruder! It bit the intruder! The wound is still fresh!
Even go so far as to quote who the doctor was on the prescription.
Oh, yeah.
Because Gus recognized the doctor because he's on Gus's pharmaceutical route.
I love that so much. Yeah, all these little things, that keep Gus in the play. Sean really couldn't tie it together without that piece.
Absolutely not.
And Rich Daddy's like, no one's checking my wrist. And Chief Vic goes, well, why not?
I love Chief Vic.
We're here. We can discredit this discredit this charlatan. So Rich Daddy breaks down. It all comes out. He's completely done, and everyone's shocked. Lassiter is so dismayed that he was wrong and Sean was right. You can just see the pain.
So,
and again, he's chewing gum. Ew.
That pain on his face when he realizes that Sean was right all along, and that Sean might actually be a psychic. Like, you can just see it on his face, and it's so perfect. You have to give Timothy Amundsen. I kept trying to say Oliphant, and I was like, that's the wrong Timothy. You have to give Timothy, you have to give Lassie, the person who plays Lassie, a lot of credit. We'll call him Tim. We have to give Tim a lot of credit because that face is so perfect in that moment, and that face continues to grow throughout the series, and it's just perfect.
I love how gobsmacked Not Jules is and how smug Gus looks, and he just goes, you want to get these cuffs off me now?
Oh, so the episode has come to its climax, it has come to its end, and Sean heads back to the police department to get another commendation, right? To get his paycheck.
He goes to get his check,
yes,
yeah.
As a quote-unquote consultant. And he talks to Chief Vic, and Chief Vic, in just all of her joy and awesomeness, decides to offer him another case. But only after she interviews his dad as a reference check for Sean.
Yeah, Henry actually tells Chief Vic, apparently, that Sean didn't get his gift until he was 18. And Sean's like, isn't that so, Henry? He never acknowledges my gifts. And it's so perfect because he thinks he's about to get caught out in a lie. And Henry backed him up. I love that.
And that's the quote that I love, because Henry is so, it's so perfect. So Sean leaves the police department and catches Henry outside. And he's like, hey, why did you, I'm so happy that you you lied for me, that you stood up for me. And Henry, Henry says, this is the last time I cover for you, pal. And I was like, oh, Henry, dear Henry, if only you knew. That's the perfect foreshadowing. This is the last time I
But he's
cover for
got a
you, pal.
clipping. He has a newspaper clipping, and Sean clocks it. It's in the truck, and I just wrote, Dad is a lying liar who is proud of his crime-solving
He
son.
is. He very much is. Because I think to some extent, Henry realizes that there's no way Sean would have been able to do that without him. I mean, Henry really did teach him those skills from the time he was very, very young. But
Yeah.
it's also just that moment of like, hey, my son who I don't have a really great relationship with, who has always been questionable, has always kind of made poor life choices, has finally done something that I can brag about as a dad, that I can be really, really proud
I
of.
think something that both Henry and Sean have to come to realize over the course of the series is and I'm going to quote it badly and I'm not going to remember whose quote it is, but you always hear honor thy father and thy mother, and it's like he just wants his son to make him proud. He wants him to do something and have integrity, and he's never felt that Sean did that. And it's like Sean's solving crimes and he's helping people, but he's doing it in a different way. And the baseline is the best way to honor your parents or your mentors or your ancestors is to live a life of integrity. And Sean's finding his way to that, and Henry has to find his way to seeing that. And I didn't mean to get deep, but I love that so
I
much.
think what you're quoting might be the
No,
Bible.
no. No, the part about the best way. No, the best way to honor is to live a life of integrity. That part's not in the Bible. Is it?
Uh, something very, very, very close to that is in Ephesians. We just did it in our sermon the other week.
Yeah, but it's like putting that in context instead of just being like, listen to them at all times and do whatever they say.
What?
I really feel like the eye candy, I mean, across the board is just popping in this show. And I don't think, can we just baby Angel
I
McNabb?
know.
I don't even like a tall man, but he's just a sweet, tall drink of water.
I love me some Buzz McNabb. Did you catch any other pop culture references that we didn't already talk about?
I didn't. I mean, there probably were some. It's a mile a minute with Sean Spencer, but the CD cases just rocked me in the middle of the episode.
There is one other one that I see in my notes right now. When Sean is leaving the police station, he greets one of the cops as a doctor, and
Oh,
the cop just rolls with it. Like there was no question, there was no anything. Or Sean just goes doctor, and the police officer just like nods his head and keeps walking.
what is that a reference to?
It's Chevy Chase and Steve Martin and Martin Short,
The
the
Three
three amigos.
Amigos.
Yes, and they're greeting an actual doctor, and so they go doctor, and they shake the doctor's hand, and then they just start greeting one another as doctor, and it's like doctor,
I
doctor,
forgot about
doctor,
that
doctor.
scene.
Yes,
That's genius. Of course he would reference comedy greats.
yes.
Ah, and I did catch that he did that. I just didn't catch the reference. Oh, so Sean, we should say, has taken out a rental space and opened a business, and he's added Gus to the lease, and they have like a brick and mortar, almost a storefront, but office space for psychic investigations. And they take private clients. They're going to consult for Santa Barbara Police Department, and Gus hates that he named it Psych. I love that that's how we get our title too.
And that's the perfect ending because it still shows that dynamic between Sean and Gus so perfectly. And also, it's just, I mean, that's so Sean to have a detective agency, a psychic detective agency that basically is called I'm Lying to You.
Yes, exactly.
It's so beautiful.
And the print when it ends and it just says Psych in the font, it's blue. It's blueberry blue. And it doesn't stay blue, and I love that so much because I almost forgot that that's what it looked like. And we also finally get the lead in to our theme song, which I felt the absence of, but it only plays over the end credits and you hear the lyrics and everything. And I can't wait for that to be
Yes.
more of a focal point lead into
I
the
can't
show.
wait for all of the versions of the theme song.
I forgot they do different versions. This is
Oh
gonna
my
be
gosh, I
great.
listened to them all the other day and I
No,
love
you
them so
didn't.
much. Oh, absolutely. There's a YouTube video of just all of them playing back to back. Highly recommend. 10 out of 10.
Oh, yes, send me the link. Pineapple Hunt?
Didn't we already talk about the pineapple? Is there more than one?
No, no, there isn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to tack it on because we did mention it in the middle, but it's gonna be a
Next
recurring.
time.
It's gonna be a recurring theme because it's hidden, I think, in every single episode, or supposedly. And hunting
Yeah.
it is a thing, and I have not spoiled myself. I haven't looked up where they all are, so I'm very excited.
I feel like when we get to the point where neither of us spotted the pineapple, we're gonna have to Google it.
I don't wanna. I wanna find it. Well, this has been fun. I loved that episode so much. I'm glad that they changed the things that they changed because it becomes this well-oiled machine of hour-long comedy and crime solving. And I just appreciate the saga so much. And I hope they keep making movies forever. I know everyone's pretty much on board with it, so why not?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I would. I'm 100% on board with that. This has been To the Blueberry. I'm Alexis, and I'm never gonna grow up, ma'am.
And I'm Kaylee. That's not blood, that's sausages. To the blueberry!
To the Blueberry!
Psych out!